There's a video on my channel titled PTSD. It's an edit that I made in January of this year. It has a substantial amount of views because of the scene that it covered, the arrival or rebirth of Griffith in the physical world. That scene, in my opinion, is one of the greatest scenes in Berserk, and to be a bit bold, the greatest scene in manga history. Chapter 179, Conviction Arc Birth Ceremony, The Arrival, long name I know, is unique for a lot of reasons. The first reason is because of the events that led up to Griffith's rebirth. More specifically, the Conviction Arc as a whole was a festival of utter madness and depravity that showcased the world of Berserk at a macro level. It showed a world rife with religious fundamentalism, moral corruption, poverty, and plague. Reading through the arc felt as if the world had turned itself on its head and taken a turn for the worst. If you've ever read anything on the end times from religious scriptures of almost any religion, you would know the events or signs that would take place before the Day of Judgment. Mentions of poverty, hypocrisy, plague, and moral degeneration are very common. The fact that Miura was able to add that before Griffith's rebirth just emphasized in more ways than one how big of an event it was. It was truly a festival of death, where souls of every sinful and righteous person flocked together into one blob of goo, waiting for that light to relieve them of their pain. While on one side, there were souls who wanted freedom from the literal hell they were in, and on the other, there was an apostle, a man broken and battered by the world. Once an observer, the apostle turns into an actor the moment he instinctively realizes that the time is nigh. The egg-shaped apostle, or the egg of the perfect world, is very underrated and deserves a separate video, but he was monumental in this mock eclipse where he was the one who became the vessel for Griffith's rebirth. If there was ever someone in Berserk who understood the pain that the people were experiencing at St. Albion, it was the egg-shaped apostle. Though causality did do something to make Griffith's reincarnation into the real world a bit incomplete, it was the egg who ultimately heard the voice of the masses at St. Albion and delivered to them the Messiah, whether for better or for worse. All of these events, the pain, the misery, the deprivation, the plague, the illness, the poverty, and so much more led to the rebirth of Griffith. If you look at things from the perspective of a side character or an NPC within the story, Griffith's rebirth was truly the light at the end of the tunnel. In the dark night that was the Conviction Arc, the day was truly bright to the point of blindness. The events that led up to and the events that followed truly changed Berserk into a series that captured the hearts and minds of millions, including myself. The next thing that made this whole scene, or chapter to be precise, unique, was Guts' reaction to the whole situation. Truth be told, it wasn't just Guts' reaction to his rebirth. Everyone present at the place of rebirth, the ruins of St. Albion, was shook and bewildered by Griffith's presence. It was truly a breathtaking moment. I mentioned Guts specifically because of the history associated between the two. At the very beginning of the chapter, we see this full vertical page of Guts' face upon seeing Griffith. Now, without any context of anything, I want you all to just look at this image, see the reaction, and think back to everything that Griffith and Guts had gone through. The eclipse was a betrayal of the highest kind, in which Guts lost everything. His mental health, gone. His right eye, gone. His left arm, gone. His ability to sleep a peaceful night, gone. His friends, people he considered his comrades, gone. The man he looked up to had taken away everything from him and left him a broken man. On top of everything else, the love of his life was reduced to being nothing short of a shell of her former self. In the minds of the reader, this image represents an unfairness of the highest order. While on one hand, Guts is having his worst nightmares seep into his everyday reality, Griffith is still that same Griffith, flawless and otherworldly. It's truly a chilling image if you think about it. The next few panels of that scene showcases Griffith spawning, I don't know if that's the correct word here, into the real world, blanketed beautifully amongst feathers and a heavenly light, emphasizing the birth of the Messiah. All who were there forgot to breathe. The next panel shows everyone, from the cushions to Isidro, the Holy Iron Chain Knights. Everyone is shook at the spectacle that is before them. I specifically like this scene because of this man's reaction. In my previous videos, I've talked a lot about Silat and how he's been present at almost every major juncture in Berserk. Well, this was one of them. After that, we see another amazing panel of Guts and his reaction to the whole rebirth scenario. I swear to God, the way Miura represents emotions in his art is nothing short of extraordinary. I don't want to sound like I'm repeating myself, but again, the unfairness is depicted in the perfect of ways. Also, as a reader, we also realize that for 2 years, Guts was searching for someone who was ultimately not even present in the real world. Basically, he was chasing nothing but a ghost of the past. The one interaction he got with Griffith before was pure chance, and even in that, Guts was not able to do anything since the immense power of Femto and the gushing of the brand of the sacrifice rendered him powerless. It was all for naught, 2 years laid to waste. Add to this the fact of Guts' escapism and his mental health issues, and you can see why he says the words Griffith the way that he does. But this chapter isn't just about the viewer feeling sorry for Guts. In this whole scene, there is one thing that is really positive about Guts. Even with everything that had happened, the pain, the anguish, and betrayals, there was one person who was able to quell Guts' rage, Casca. Seeing her face, he was able to tame his inner beast of darkness. He was able to control his rage, which is a huge stretch for a man like Guts. One scene from that chapter that I personally admire is this one. Zod runs up to Griffith, catches his eye, and then bows down to him. Though this scene really started the decline in Zod's role as an independent apostle, the face-off between the two really looked intense, and him bowing down shows that even with all the free will that Zod has, he is still subservient to Griffith. If this isn't top tier writing, I don't know what is. And then the final scene. If Guts was spellbound by seeing Griffith, then this scene cemented Griffith's might and ruthlessness in the series. It also drives home my whole discussion on unfairness for Guts. Guts grabs Casca, takes a look at Griffith as he's about to tilt his head. His eyes come out of his sockets, and then we get this. The face that Griffith makes when he comes face to face with Guts is simple yet haunting. This is the man who wanted wings. This is the man whose ambition fell. This is the man who sacrificed all of his friends to make his own dream come true. This is the man that I hate from the very crevices of my heart, but I can't help but love him. Amidst the backdrop of the blinding lights stands Griffith with a face that's as cold as ice. The lips look as though they're smiling, but they're not, and the eyes are as demonic as they can be, but there is a certain demonic beauty that draws you into those eyes, makes you want to dive deep into the abyss and just have a good time there, knowing that you got to see what you came into this world to see. All of this makes me come to one final conclusion for this part. Griffith was definitely mewing. If there are two good things that came out of the 2016 anime, it's the second opening of the series titled Sacrifice and Griffith's rebirth. I hate that 2016 anime just as much as the next guy, but they kinda did right by Griffith by giving him the 2D animation instead of the awful 3D one. You can go check the scene yourself. It is so weird how they made Griffith the only 2D character in the whole series. Well, he is the king, so he is the one who deserves it, right? The fans? Guts? Casca? Who cares about them? What black swordsman? Look at the god. Look at the beautiful man. He did that thing. One comment on YouTube puts this whole scene into full circle. It's beautiful. I guess if there is any conclusion to this video, it is that life's a pain and we will never get a good adaptation of Berserk. Rest in peace, Kentaro Miura. And please leave a like if you like my content.